Oh my God, we're back in normal clothes and we don't have fancy makeup and glam and photographers.
Speak for yourself, Soman. I am on glam all the time. Just kidding. Actually, someone did comment that when I posted a video from our glam shoot, basically being like, the one time a year I get glam. And they said, girl, you have glam all the time. And I was like, thank you so much for thinking
I have that in my head. Yeah, I feel like it's true. You always seem like you're on the verge of glam.
I'm wearing tinted moisturizer and mascara. That's it. And that's considered a lot for during the week for me.
I think John Green said this once. Whenever boys get their makeup done, they're like, why can't I have this all the time? But
you could.
Well, you could, but I just think we're too lazy. Forget the, social stigma, which I think is gone. I think we're lazy.
No, but that leads into the beard is male makeup. It gives you the illusion of a jawline.
Mm-hmm.
I know my husband, when he shaves down his beard, his jawline changes and he gets very self-conscious about, oh, this is my real jawline.
If Scott shaves his beard, I don't talk to him for a week. He has to get my permission because,
That's the haircut right now. So many members
100%.
of my husband's family want him to cut his hair, and he says it's Victoria's choice.
Speaking of us in control, here we go.
Hi, I'm Victoria Aveyard, author of the Red Queen and Realm Breaker series.
And I'm Soman and author of the School for Good and Evil series. And welcome to Plot Twist, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the biggest swings in our careers. Victoria's Tempest, her very first novel for adults, an epic pirate fantasy.
And Soman's Young World, a red-hot young adult political thriller. Each week, we go behind the curtain of our creative process and give you our hot takes on thorny issues in publishing and entertainment. We answer your mailbag questions, plus we pitch plot twists that we want to see in real life.
Today's very hot topic: would you read a novel generated by AI?
Deep inhale.
We're going to have a lot to say, but before we get that, we're going to go to our first segment where each week we're going to come up with a word or phrase that encapsulates the essence of our week on and off the page. And we're going to start with you because everybody's holding their breath about your edit letter. So we're curious where it all went.
I don't have it.
Oh,
and I know you're not surprised. I'm not surprised. Anyone who works in publishing is not surprised. The way our schedules work, the way that deadlines work, the way that things get missed. It's how it goes. I have been assured it's coming this week. And to be fair, it is a very, very, very long book. And even with the time that has been given, this is still considered a very quick turnaround.
Very fast, very quick turnaround. So what's your theme of the week?
Holding pattern. Not to continuously make this about travel, because you've been having so many travel issues lately. But yeah, I'm in a holding pattern because I'm still waiting on my edit notes. I am still reading through my first draft, and making my own little edits along the way. I am starting to plan the proposal for my next book because I'm in a bit of a position where, yes, I am continuously working on Tempest, and this is still very much, again, another plane metaphor. This is the first plane on the runway. This is the first one to take off. But there is a plane right behind it that I need to start getting ready because I'm not under contract for anything else beyond Tempest. And our schedules are set so far in advance. So it's about that time where to feel safe in my job, I would like to have another book or two under contract. And I'm imagining this one to be a duology.
How long do we think the edit letter is going to be?
Why must you torture me in this way?
Because it's a 1,000-page book.
Shut up, Soman. Shut up.
Okay, I'm going to make a bet because that's my job here.
Your job is to stress me out. 10 pages. I've gotten 10-page edit letters before.
Really?
Yeah. To be fair, there's good things in there too. But I prefer. You don't like an edit letter. I know that.
I've never gotten one.
I prefer an edit letter. I want to see the bird's eye view of the issues and also the good things. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, all of that. But I'll let you know when it comes in.
Oh my God, we're going to have so many questions. One question, which is, do they start by being like, you are amazing, you are wonderful, you are a genius?
Well, it's a new editor, so I don't know. But I have, and it is a combination of edit notes from my UK editor and my US editor, which is the first time I'm doing that.
Yeah.
where I'm getting my UK editor's input as well. But this is also the first time I'm working editorially with both these editors. So who knows? But in the past, yes, I think they're taught to do the sandwich method where it's something good, something bad, something good.
It's so funny that you have a holding pattern because mine is ready, set, launch.
Yay! Okay, that's good. That's good. We have forward momentum from somebody.
Oh, God. It's because it's funny. It's not involving the writing. It's just about launching all these things that have been in process for a long time, like preparing for the launch of Young World. Tomorrow is my big publisher's launch where 250 people will be on a Zoom call from Random House. I have to really, I get basically 20 minutes to present the book, which is a long time over Zoom. So you have to do kind of a song and dance that really introduces people to the book and makes them feel like they understand it, that they're part of it, that they see the vision. So that burden is heavily on me and I feel the pressure, but it's something that I've been preparing for a while. So that's tomorrow. Preparing for the launch of this podcast, which you guys have hopefully listened to a few episodes of. But meanwhile, we've been prepping it and getting it ready for all of you. Then in September, I'm doing this interesting workshop in St. Louis for high school students about presenting themselves authentically on college applications.
Ooh.
For a couple of weeks. So it's a 2-part workshop over the course of 2 weeks. And it's a theater of 700 people. So I have to have like a full-on TED Talk ready for 2 Mondays in a row to present it.
This is where you thrive. You are a performer.
I know, but I have to. It's like I was really good on tests in high school, but like it's because I studied more than anybody else. So this is the problem. I'm not a natural.
I have seen you on stage do 15-minute long choreographed full dance numbers with special effects.
Okay, can I tell you a funny story about those? I always present like a week and a half before the performance. I put stuff on Instagram that's like day 1 of rehearsal. Those photos are from like 6 weeks before that.
Yes, that makes sense.
Why don't we talk about our goals for next week? But first we have to look at how we did last week with our goals. And your first goal was to finish reading your draft and to get through your edit letter.
So I didn't finish reading my draft and I don't have an edit letter to get through. So this is an F, but also with an asterisk.
Yeah. This is a blank space in the grade book.
But we did really accomplish something with our photo shoot, I think. Having gone through the photos and seeing like there are some potential, not just great photos of you and me, but once again, I have somehow managed to get a headshot without doing a headshot photo shoot.
Always. And then you also had the extra goal of enjoying your long holiday weekend.
Yeah, so we're a little bit off here, but to set the stage for everybody, that was referring to Memorial Day weekend. And we went to like the beach house essentially and just had a real vintage weekend. It was just me, my husband, my dog, and lots of good food and drinks and sand.
This sounds amazing.
Yeah, it felt very Jenny Han coded. You know, like the towels are drying outside the door. You're kind of like sandy and gross hair all weekend, but you don't care because you're just in a little beach town.
All right, my goals for last time were to prepare for Young World launch, which is happening tomorrow. I think I'm pretty ready. Finish part 1 of the new fantasy book. That's an F. That's going to get carried over. And then go see you in LA for the photo shoot. We just had such a good time.
Yeah, we did. We had a great time. It's always great to see you. We don't get to see each other that often, even though it sounds like we see each other all the time. But that is the thing with the writing community is most of us, we do not see each other in person more than a few times a year, if that. And so when we do get together, it's like a big party. It's like camp reunion, that kind of thing.
And there was lots of outfits. We got to mix and match.
The outfits. But another thing that I hope us reiterating our goals and giving ourselves usually Fs. I hope this illustrates what the writing process, what the publishing industry, what being a working author is like. It's a lot of stop-start. It's a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's a lot of holding patterns. It's a lot of letting things sit and cook and a lot of work that you don't see that isn't forward momentum, but it still counts.
100%. Like, for instance, I'm putting so much work into the Young World launch thing because that's ultimately all the people who are going to be selling the book. Like when it's on the bookshelf, like 99% of that is done by whoever I'm talking to at the publisher. So this stuff matters, even though it takes a lot of time away from the writing. It's just
and it's stuff you have no idea exists until you're in it.
100%. Our goals for this week.
Yeah, what are your goals?
Okay, mine is to kind of, goat that Young World launch tomorrow if I can bring my best level. It harkens back to my athlete days as being a tennis player. It's like, it feels like, you have a pressure moment and you have to deliver. Then finish chapter 5, which will end part 1 of that fantasy novel. That has to be this week. And then Young World is a basketball team. I think I talked about this the other week where
I don't know if you did. I think you need to refresh our memories because I remember when you sent me the photo, I was like, wait, what?
Okay, so I'm sponsoring a summer league basketball team, and I need to have a team name for them. So I was like, I don't know what to name them, and all of a sudden I thought, would you guys be? This is like rural Missouri, like pretty tough kids, and I was like, what if we called it Young World, and you guys wore nuclear orange basketball jerseys, because that's the color scheme of the book. We designed some jerseys, showed it to them, and I was shocked at how much they were into it. They were like, this looks tough, this looks gangster, we love it. And what I realized is the Kobe Bryant Nike sneakers have that color, and they can't none of them can afford those shoes. So like they were so into it. So the first game of their season, there's 7 games total, is tonight. So I want them to actually win, because if they go like 0-7 or something, it's like that's not a good start for Young World.
No, but I love this idea of authors and their books sponsored. I just want the whole league to be sponsored by different authors, and every team is a different book, and it'll be like book brackets. But is that a little Hunger Games to
good?
Me?
This is the best idea in the history, and every team would take the sponsorship because we gave them the choice between. And here's the crazy part: like now that they're playing in these nuke orange crazy jerseys that they're obsessed with, they've been going to their high school coach, being like, "Can't we just wear these for the season?" And the coach, instead of our like high school uniform, and the coach is like, No.
You know what's cool though? However many kids are on that team, that's however many sales you just had. For sure, true. Guaranteed.
This is not a reading group, but they will buy that book.
Yes.
If they want to be sponsored next year, let's just say they will buy that book. Okay, your turn. What's your goals for this week?
Goals for this week, besides like physically getting my edit notes, my edit letter. I said notes very strangely right there. Besides physically getting my edit letter and opening it, because we all know that's a hurdle, and reading it, another hurdle. And starting to break it down. So basically I print it out. I like to work on paper. I print it out. I highlight it. I take my own notes. Besides doing all of that, there is one chapter in Tempest in that monster draft that I actually didn't write. I bullet pointed it. And it's because it's the final climactic sea battle. And so it was something I could very easily bullet point. And it's the kind of writing that I'm best at. And I knew at that point I just needed to get to the end, and I could bullet point that and get to the end in ample time. And so this week, my goal, if I feel ready, if I feel like the gears are working again, I'm back in the characters' heads now that I'm rereading the book, I'm going to hopefully do that chapter. And I'm hoping it's going to be under 10,000 words.
I cannot.
Battles are long.
Cannot get over it.
And I got these ships. They're firing at each other. We got people going from ship to ship. We've got some magic coming in.
Hold on. I'm going to pull this up while I'm talking to you because I want you to understand, those of you who are listening. I'm opening my my chapters 1 through 4 of my new fantasy novel, of which I've been working on for 4 months pretty steadily. And it is a total of, hold on, you said 10,000. You want to do your 10,000 battle this week? It is 8,200 words, and it's 4 months.
But you're doing other things.
No, it's like you have the ability to generate words in a way where like,
but is it an intelligent thing of me to do? I have to, we talked about this before, but every time I talk about word counts, so many other authors weigh in and are like, Victoria, we don't get paid by the word. You're so dumb.
I just don't know how you generate that much stuff. It's almost like,
if it needs it, I think writing more simply and economically is an incredible talent, and I want to hone that talent in myself. I'm hoping the next book I am more economic.
But this is why you don't use Gen AI, because it's too slow. You generate. We should
It's
actually.
not
That
that
would
it's
be the
slow.
best
It's just
TikTok.
that I'm not wading through all that. And
That would be the best TikTok ever if you actually we said, okay, ready, set, go. Who generates the response faster?
we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not going down that road.
All right.
It's
Any other goals?
yes. So I keep joking to my husband, my yoga journey starts tomorrow. And every day he says, "Did your yoga journey start today?" And I say no. But I like vaguely do yoga just in my house. I don't want anyone touching me or seeing me while I do it. And my goal this week is to do 3 yoga classes. And I've done 1 so far. So that's good. But I find that it's definitely one of those things where you think, wow, eating right and exercising and moving your body is good for me. What a freaking scam. But it's true, especially for us where our jobs require us to sit at a desk typing for long periods of time. It's not ergonomic. We have all these repetitive stress injuries. It seems like a pretty sedentary job. It is, and it's inherently pretty bad for you when it comes to like physical pain and physical health. So I feel like, and you do the same thing. You're very on top of this, but having movement, having something physical every single day does wonders for us physically and mentally.
I think that'll be its own episode at one point, which is like, how do you write, be a writer and stay healthy, mentally and physically? I think we'll have to do that for an episode because I think
you're going to have to show me the author who hits both of those because I don't think there's one. But anyway, my last goal is sort of to scale back on social media a bit and not spend as much of my time there because it can be spent better in other places. Whenever my here's your screen counts for the week comes up, I'm like, oof, that's no good.
Well, we'll see how you do on that goal next week.
Yeah, right. Speaking of social media, let's talk about industry nonsense.
Yeah, this is the big one you guys have been waiting for, where we dive into thorny issues in art and publishing that other people, reasonable people, might be afraid to touch. This week's topic is: would you read an AI-generated novel? And for this question, as all questions, we're going to let Victoria run loose on it for a while, and then I'll come back in and ask her some provocative questions.
Well, I think we will preface this with you and I went back and forth over what to actually title this, because the generative AI, Gen AI question in art is huge and wide and pervasive and becoming more and more pervasive every day. Every day we are seeing more and more people using it, more and more people admittedly using it, more and more people trying to hide their usage of it. And it's extremely frustrating for artists, for creators, for creatives, for anyone who works in a creative space. It's scary. And I have friends who don't work in creative spaces who are also terrified and also thinking about, is this going to take my job? But for us right now, we're talking about in the art space, in the publishing space, in the writing space. And of course, at present, generative AI, the platforms you use to generate creative work, quote, creative work, it all works off of stolen material. Our material included. The Atlantic did that search engine where we could see very clearly, like, these works of yours have been stolen, and you're not being properly compensated. None of this has been licensed. This has all been capital S, stolen. So it is stolen work being used to create this other work. And the generative AI also doesn't make anything new. It's regurgitated. It's just remixing what someone else has already done. Could be you or me, what someone else has already done. So we naturally have this inherent hostility towards this thing because it is already stolen from us, and not just stolen from us once. It is stolen from us with the intention to make something that will then compete with us. So it's almost like getting hit twice. Neither of us work in the self-publishing space, so it's not really something we can talk specifically about, but I do see many, many indie authors talking about how generative AI work is really crowding their space. I see posts about like prompts left in text. You also see like very clearly AI generated work that is meant to be sort of knockoffs where they like have just changed the names of a popular book. Feels like a smash grab until someone notices it and gets it taken down. Kind of runs the gamut. And now it's becoming clear that AI in terms of writing is become present in the traditional publishing space as well, which is where we work. James Frey gave an interview kind of openly stating that he has used AI in writing his next novel. And obviously this podcast that we're doing right now will come out later. But as of right now, the book that he used AI to generate comes out today. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how that lands with platforms, with the New York Times, with bestseller lists, if they choose to include a book that is openly and admittedly using AI, generative AI. So we're kind of seeing right now in the traditional publishing spaces, these guardrails that we thought existed maybe not exist. And that's very scary. I will say personally, I think that using generative AI to make art does not make you an artist. You don't want to write, you want to have written. And I do think, because I think, well, why would you use it to do this thing when the journey is inherently part of the goal? It's just a financial incentive. It's just a grift. Like, people are using generative AI to create books for financial benefit. Like, there's no, for the love of the game, there's no, I'm trying to tell a story so I can connect with others and be part of this. It's literally just, I want this book out faster so I get paid faster. I want to hit on XYZ so that I can catch XYZ readers. Personally, to go back to the question that we started this all with, would you read an AI-generated novel? I would not. But I will warn, there are very, very few ways, as of right now, because generative AI is not watermarked, there's very few ways to accurately identify generative AI writing. Unless there's something like, in the case of James Frey, an open admission or a prompt left in the text, you really can't tell. It looks like real writing because it is stolen from real writing. So now we're in this space where what happens when the walls fail and the people in power, either at our publishers or at platforms, book clubs, don't stand against generative AI the way we thought they would. And that's where we're at right now.
All amazing thoughts and points. So let's dig in to some of them, because I, share so many of your views on there, and I just want to press at a few ideas. One of them is, it's funny because when you're reading a book, I think there's an inherent contract with the author that they've used the writing as some portion of a confessional / healing journey, meaning that they experienced the writing. And so it's almost like when you're reading the book, you want to know that the author went through writing it, that you're having the same experience they did, that there's something about a vicarious experience of creative process, right? Like I can never read a book or watch a movie without thinking of the making of it in some capacity. So to read a book that's made with AI means the author didn't actually experiencing anything. And almost like they've taken the third and fourth hand experience of other authors, right?
Absolutely.
And experience as their own. So to me, it's almost like you're watching your team win the game, but they didn't actually play. And I keep thinking, and I use this question to myself and to others many times, which is like, if you could have the biggest book in the world versus an absolute failure that no one reads, but you didn't write the one that's a huge success and you wrote the one that literally no one read, I think every author who's worth their salt, who has any integrity or really is a craftsperson, will always take the loss.
This is why I say people who use generative AI are not authors.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about authors, I'm not talking about people who use generative AI. I'm just not.
They're grifters, but they're also time lapsers. It's this idea of like they would take the win in the Super Bowl over playing the game just to have the trophy. Yeah.
I think then it comes back to, then they're not a true author to begin with. I think we are very, very naive as to how many people are using generative AI right now in writing and publishing spaces. There was a poll that came out from BookBub, and obviously you have to look at who they polled specifically. But it was something like 45% of the writers they polled use generative AI in some capacity. There is a subreddit called Writing with AI. There are 40,000 subscribers in it. We are in a moment where we're realizing we are in an echo chamber and we might not be hearing what everybody else is saying or doing. And I think, like you said, the reader wants to know there's a human behind the work. The reader wants to know that there's a human connection. They want the authenticity. They want that genuine knowledge of journey and pain. So I think that is why many people will say they don't use generative AI and they're not open about it. And at the very least, James Frey is like, yeah, I did.
Which I don't think we can beat the direction it's going in, like as you
Right.
say. But I think this is what's going to happen. And tell me if A, if you agree, and B, what you think you make of this. I think in minimum 5 years, maximum 5 years, maybe less, we're going to be trained to fetishize creative process versus the end result. Meaning the book, the movie, the photograph, that's nice. But what we really want is the video of the making of it.
Yeah.
In a way, the making of the movie, the making of the book, seeing someone at their desk writing the book, photos of their track changes. There's something in our brain that's going to start to fetishize process. So, for the last 10 years of writing School for Good and Evil, I didn't let anyone into my process at all. It was 100% like I wanted to be like a magician, just deliver the book and act as everything was effortless. It was I loved Karl Lagerfeld, the fashion designer. And his thing was never let anyone see your process, just deliver it like magic, as if you didn't break a sweat at all and everything's easy. The Roger Federer way of playing tennis, I've changed because I could feel this groundswell with AI of, I'm going to open the door. You're going to see everything. Because I think at the end of the day, that everything is going to not only be a companion to the book, it might supersede the book. It might become the thing that people actually care about more, is that the process went into it. So when they read the book, they're experiencing the process vicariously, because in a few years, that process will be endangered.
Yes. And you know how I know you're right? Because I 100% agree. Because I have, in recent weeks, been posting videos of myself editing my book by hand. And they are getting traction like no other writing videos I've ever posted before. I'm getting comments like, wow, I love seeing this. This makes me more excited for the book. I wish other authors did this thing. And I'm thinking to myself, they 100% do. I have done this before because unlike you, I am very, I make content out of my process. I have, deadline week blogs where I'm going day by day, like here's how many words I wrote to hit my deadline. And I've never seen them catch the way these videos of me going through my manuscript have, because, and I don't know if it's like the algorithm or what, but you're right, that authenticity, that being led into the process is suddenly much, much more enticing. And I don't know if there's like a conscious thought behind, oh, it means it's not AI, so I really want to connect with this thing. But you are right, we're tapping into something, because now all of a sudden, something that I've been doing for years and never really got that much traction now is. And so I have these comments where I'm like, I have video blogs that you can go look at, and you can see that I've been doing this for a while. You can see so many other authors doing this for a while. So maybe it's like a trend, but I would encourage other authors like, hey, if you want some views, people love seeing you work.
Not to psychoanalyze, but I think because a lot of the younger generation, I work with teenagers so much, they struggle to not use AI because it's part of their consciousness now. We grew up without it, so we know how to work without it. We know how to critically think without it. It's just part of their school process. Teachers are aware of it. It's just how they operate.
I don't understand it at all.
It's just it's their language, and I can't judge because it's part of it's what they're growing up with. But I will say that I think what it's doing is when they see you now at your desk working through a draft, there is something of almost like a wish fulfillment, in the same way that a lot of those kids want flip phones, that they want to go to. They're like, I wish I could just start from scratch, start with a blank page.
I have started seeing a lot of videos that are sort of either glorifying or people sad that they didn't get to go to college through the years like 2008 to like 2014. Which is when I was at college. Yeah. And they're posting these videos from college like, oh my God, can you imagine? And I'm like, I can, I was there. It was
100%, where you had to make plans by showing up on a street corner and hoping that Matthew Ebel showed up and didn't stand you up. But which he often did. But the other thing I was going to say, which I think is interesting to think about, and tell me if you disagree. I actually think it's a competitive advantage for writers like us, because ultimately, we've been around a long time. People know our work. They trust our process. We've let them in. We have a foothold, right? I think new writers, it's tricky because you have to build trust with the audience. You have to convince them you're not one of just the AI clones. You are now kind of in the muck with all the zombies who aren't actually producing human work. So if you are a human amongst the zombies, it's rough. It's a rough period.
I am I've had this conversation with many other authors where we are thinking about, wow, to be a debut right now, there's so many obstacles that we didn't have to deal with. Obviously, there are different obstacles. We had our own, whatever. Not to say, we had it harder than you kids, but we didn't. This is a new frontier. And unfortunately, we're in a frontier where the law is not catching up. The Trump administration is like actively trying to stop any kind of legislation on AI for 10 years, which is bizarre. Like even for Trump standards, it's bizarre. I don't understand how we're not going to be able to legislate this thing and just let it run its course for 10 years and potentially do what?
Well, also, it causes a big problem because people know our work. They know our style. And at this present moment, you and I, with 100% confidence, we would sign it in blood. We know our work is better than AI. There's no situation in which AI can even come close to the quality we can deliver for right now.
But I think we are also in a place where there are both readers and publishing industry professionals who value quantity over quality, speed over talent. And that is always going to be the case. There's always going to be, especially because we come from children's and YA, where I've been put on the 1 book a year schedule, knowing that's going to produce worse work, but it is what the readership demands. It is what's going to keep this engine moving. It's part of the business. And I'm very scared of moving towards generative AI as part of the business to keep up with the schedule, to keep up with the appetite. And you have people who are not going to be willing to wait.
I think it's going to be the opposite. My bet is that
I want to live in your brain.
Yeah, I think people are going to realize that there's going to be such a difference between a Tempest or a Young World and a book that's generated quickly, using AI to fill in gaps.
You can't tell. That's here's the thing. It's not that you can't tell, oh, this book is better than this book. You can't tell this book was written by a human and this book was not. There are you see, and it's like, unless there's a leak in the process, unless there's an error in the text or an admission from the author, there's no way to know right now.
I agree.
And that's really scary and really frustrating.
I agree with that on the word level, the language level. I don't agree in the aggregate. I think because the level's too high for AI to ever match.
But that's you as an author being so discerning, so good at looking at the work.
Whether a reader can do it.
So I know it's like we're always talking about, there's the conversations in publishing, the conversations on in writing communities, on different social platforms. We always come back to, this is like 5%, if that, of the sphere.
Yeah.
95% of the readership, of the community, of the people who buy books, of the people who work in books are not hearing this. They're not thinking about this at all.
Which is why I think releasing our process as to the making of the book is going to be the antidote, I think.
Yeah.
Everybody listening to this podcast, tell us what you think in the comments below. You can also email us at plottwist. What was it? Mail at plottwistpod.net. That's it. Mail at
What's our email?
Pod.net.
We need an AI to tell you our email.
Don't email us. Just comment wherever you are reading this, because the mail might not get to us. But we're going back to snail mail. We're done. Oh, God. Speaking of reader mailbag, that is our next segment. That's going to take us in some new directions, but probably bring us back to where we started, where we're going to answer some of our favorite questions that we got from you for this week. Question number 1, what does your editorial process look like?
And you and I are at the opposite ends. Like mine is just starting, yours is done.
Mine is done. And so let me think. Where I am right now is I made the Marie Antoinette edits where I made sure that I'm not going to get canceled for anything. I made sure that, I sort of did a cancel-proof.
Don't worry, Soman. Someone will figure it out.
Oh, well, then I'll feel like Madonna again. But I went through and made sure that, it's clean of anything that might cause any trouble. And that's kind of the final stage in the polish, usually with any book. And then now what I'm waiting for is what are called proof pages, which is the first time where it's laid out on paper by a designer. And Young World, I think is going to be from what I heard, 483 pages.
Ooh.
And it has over 100 pieces of art in it. And I haven't seen that laid out at all. So it's possible that I'll get the first proof pages and then come on this podcast and be like, okay, I'm back where you are. Because having to figure out how to lay everything out, maybe I don't like the font, maybe I don't like the way it's put together, I don't like the way the book's feeling, then I really have to go back in and fight some fights. So waiting for proof pages is maybe like 1/20th the stress of you waiting for your edit letter. But there is this element of, either you get this pleasant surprise of, oh, we're actually close to what the final book's going to look like, or you have to put on your construction hat and get ready to start sledging some hammers.
Yeah. And I guess because we both have sort of a film school background, because I do this when I get my passes or I get my proofs when the page is typeset, I am looking at it with the screenwriting eye. I'm looking for white space. I'm editing for the eye now. I'm editing to make the words not change them, but change the way they look so that they are easier to digest for the reader. So like the easy example is instead of having two large blocks of text, which automatically makes a reader's eyes glaze. Even the most intense and curious of readers will see that and kind of start to blur. So figuring out, actually we need a paragraph break here. This line is very important and needs to be on its own line. The eye needs to go to this line. And that's a very screenwriting sensibility that I think we both do.
Oh, 100%. I'm so obsessive that in the early first 20 pages and the last 20 pages, I go down to look at where the page turn is.
Yeah.
And if it's in the middle of a crucial line, I'm like, we have to redo this. Because like if you break up a joke, if you break up a key emotional moment, like it's just a bad page turn.
100%. And it's called like editing for the white space. And in screenwriting, it's more about, executives don't like to read, but they got to read. So you want to make it look as easy to read as possible. But it's the same thing, you want to make it as smooth of an experience as possible for the reader. But I'm so far away from that part of the process to the point where I'm like salivating about it. But again, right now I'm waiting for my edit letter to come back. I'm reading my first draft. And I said, someone the other day asked me, how many drafts do you go through? And I thought this should be a really simple answer. And it's not, because you're thinking, well, there's a couple of developmental edits at the very least. Then you go to line edits. Then you go to copy edits. Then you go to pass pages. Does every single one of those count as a draft? So for me, developmental edits, those are the big heavy lifting. That's the content. That's making sure the story is working on the more macro level. The characters make sense. The world makes sense. All the big stuff. And I usually do 2 of those, maybe a third, much smaller one, before you go to line edits. And that's much more about word choice, continuity, word repetition. That's a big one. And little moments of like timing. You said this thing happened 2 weeks ago, but here you said it happened a month ago. And I know the timeline is going to give me problems in this story because it's a lot of sea travel. And you're like, well, they were on the ship for 2 weeks. Were they? Not sure. And then, of course, you go to copy edits. And then it goes to a very different set of editors with a very different set of skills who are going to tell you you don't know how to use a semicolon. And I accept that.
Oh, I fight with them.
We do love to stat, because sometimes there are words where you're like, I did invent this word. It's supposed to be like that.
100%. Well, the other thing I was going to say is it's possible that your edit letter comes back and it's like, this is 2 books, in which case you will be ahead of me.
That's true.
You will go from behind to ahead.
Another thing, too, again, from the film side, is when you get that question, what if you got an edit letter and you don't agree with a note from the editor? Fair. Happens all the time. Do you have to take it? No. I will say an important sort of exercise to do is to figure out, is it the note you don't agree with? Is it the suggestion you don't agree with? Does the note actually hit on something still? Maybe the way they've articulated it is incorrect, but you're looking for the note beneath the note. Because no matter what, them saying, oh, these 2 characters, this shouldn't happen, XYZ should happen. Maybe the XYZ is wrong, but they're still bumping on something, and it is worth looking at. It's not worth just saying, don't agree, let it go. You got to think, is there a note beneath the note? Is there something I'm missing? So that's also good editorial advice.
100%. Especially when you have an experienced editor. I think when I had Tony on School for Good and Evil, who had been editing for 50 years, had edited Maurice Sendak, Shel Silverstein. I mean, she was a legend. I can't imagine. My rate of probably 99.9% of wherever she identified something, I would end up making a change. It might not have been what she suggested, but I would have made a change.
Right.
Because
there
if
is
she's
something.
stopping, it's bothering her. Let's go to our second question. And the reader is asking, what if you have a full-time job or need to make money? How can you still write a book? Well,
I would say, one, we are both lucky enough that we are full-time authors, but most authors, most people, you go into a bookstore and you look at their book on the shelf, or you look at the book on the website. Most of them have day jobs. Most.
I did for my, for School for Good and Evil, for the first 3 books, in fact, I was a tutor. So I would write from 9 to about 2:30 every day. And then I would go tutor from probably about 3:30 to 10 p.m. And this was almost 7 days a week. And so it was brutal. But luckily I was in my 20s. So I had like the stamina to be able to do these insane days. But the tutoring is what made me feel free, because I had a great income from private tutoring, and so I just felt completely, and I didn't want to give it up. So even School for Good and Evil really took off in the beginning, and so by book 2, I could have been a full-time writer, and I just wouldn't let it go. I just loved the freedom of knowing that I didn't have to make money from this book. This was not my career. It was pure fun. And I think it's why books 1 through 3 just had this quite unhinged, like go for broke quality. And book 4, finally, I had to give it up because of the time and everything that was happening. And my dad cried when I gave up tutoring, because the idea of giving up this ultra successful business that was just completely, making more and more money, he couldn't understand how I couldn't do both. And I said, there comes a time where you have to choose. I couldn't be a great tutor and a great writer anymore at the same time. Maybe it was just being in my 30s and not having the same
But the core
space.
of the two is still the same. Like, you still work with so many young people. You're still doing the core. And I think that's really lovely.
I look for them. And sometimes kids come to me, and some parents will write and be like, I heard you were a tutor. Would you help my kid with, their college essay or this or whatever? And sometimes they'll just be like, sure. I mean, they pay. But I'm still Indian.
Oh my God. A lot of people too are thinking, is there health insurance? When I first wrote Red Queen, I was home. I moved home after college. And I remember I did a 2-week screenwriting job right before I went back. And it paid me like $8,000. And I had that, besides, room and board, living at home with my parents. But I had that cash, and I had Obamacare.
Yeah.
Because I was under 26 and I was able to be on my parents' health insurance, and they had really good health insurance. And so that was something that allowed me to have a little bit of a runway to write a book before my college loans kicked in. But I remember when Red Queen was on submission, at that point in time, I was driving kids home from my mom's school because they didn't have a bus system for cash under the table. So I was a chauffeur for these 3 kids, and I would have my phone ready in like the console in case my agent called me, and I would see rejection emails come in as I was driving them home. And the call that we were on, we had gotten a preempt that Harper wanted to buy it, came while I was driving those kids. And I was like,
oh my God. We have to do an episode about talking about our those experiences of the early rejections, and we'll do one. We'll do a how did this
They
all
seem
start
far away
episode.
And yet so sharp.
Oh my God. It's like those memories are burned. I remember everything.
I remember sitting at my parents' kitchen table, and the deal memo had just come in, and both my parents were still at work at school. And I printed it out and I put it on the table, and I waited for them to come home to tell them a big publisher wanted to buy my book in a 3-book deal. And this was good money, and I could do this as a job. And my mom came in and my dad came in, and my mom saw it and started crying. And my dad thought it was a scam.
That is, the dads always do. My dad, when I said I can give up tutoring, right when I got the deal for the first book, he said, no, happiness is positive cash flow.
This is why we get along, I think, because there's something about like first-gen families.
Yeah, he was just like, he did not even entertain the idea that I would give up tutoring.
No.
Happiness is positive cash flow has become kind of the mantra
that your
of our
tattoo
whole
on your
family.
back.
You know, what does he say? Oh, when you have silver in your hair, you must have gold in your pocket. So, and he's like, you have
I
a
love
lot of
that.
silver. If you'd like to submit a question to our reader mailbag, you're going to email it to, oh, here we go again, mail at plottwistpod.net, plottwistpod.net. And our final segment of the week, plot twist we want in the real world. This week, mine is super simple, which is if you get on a plane, before you get on the plane, they better check the plane to make sure it works. Because if I get on the plane and everyone gets on the plane and then you make us get off it because you suddenly realize something's broken, that is what is encouraging me to demand this plot twist.
To be fair, I'm glad they realized something was broken before they took off. Like,
Yeah,
that's
but,
good.
I mean, they can
But
do this.
we need Pete Buttigieg back. We need him keeping the planes in the air with his bare hands.
God.
My plot twist. I really want the Tolkien estate to sue Palantir for their name.
That would be amazing.
They're literally an evil magical object spying on us. Like, they really said bet and ran with that name. And I just think all of these companies, all of these tech bros who, you know, jack off over Lord of the Rings and fundamentally don't understand what it's about. I hope
That would
they're
be
being
They
haunted.
should totally do it. That is a plot twist that should actually happen.
Also, my personal plot twist, I want my edit notes.
I mean, at this
but
point,
I don't.
that would
I
be a
also
plot
want to
twist.
like live in bliss a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do want that.
If those show up, it's a plot twist. If they don't show up, it's a plot.
Yeah.
Next week, that's going to be a good.
This is how it goes.
Regardless of what happens.
We're showing you the nitty gritty. It's not us sitting in our lovely offices with the rain gently hitting the window and our mug of tea steaming. It's not always that. It's a business.
But we do have highly curated content if you are interested.
Yeah, even the cracks we show, we're like, that one.
100%. And you can find it. My Substack is every Tuesday, a hyper over-emotional diary called Diary of a Novel on Substack. It's completely free. So you can see all my kind of deep melodramatic thoughts there. And you can subscribe and get the email. And then Instagram is kind of my headquarters at Soman.
You can find me on TikTok, Substack, Instagram, and Threads, even though I have said in this episode, I'm trying to scale back a little bit on social media. I've been saying that for years. Every single time I'm like, this is it. It's going to stick. I'm going to put my energy where it should be. So let's see.
That's going to get an F next week. But it'll be a very entertaining F. Thank you for joining us for this episode. And thanks to our producer, Liam Bellingham, who's always our faithful captain. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Plot Twist is hosted by Victoria Aviard and Soman Chainani. It's produced and edited by Liam Bellingham. Our logos, art, and graphics are by Michael Blank. The music is by Thieves and Louis Adrian. Production support from June Secchia.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to Plot Twist wherever you listen to podcasts and drop us a review to let us know how we're doing. See you next Thursday.